think about 15 years at Cairns. She was raised in South Australia at Wallaroo, is that correct?
Oh, no.
No?
I was raised in Adelaide, but I lived in Kadina.
Lived at Kadina. Oh, okay, so we thank you for that. So she's really a South Australian, and she's travelled a lot. She's been to New Zealand, I think even overseas. I don't know how far you took your car, but certainly been around Australia. So, and we have her daughter-in-law here too, Alice, who is going to video it. Here she is, so if you see her with taking a camera, taking photos, that's what she's doing. So I'd like to introduce Unice, and we thank you for sparing the time today to speak to us. Thank you.
That needs to be right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we're running a bit late, I'll try and condense it down a bit for you. This little trip, when we started this trip, we lived in Atherton, up in the Atherton tablelands. Where are we? Here, where you can see. And we decided that we would go anti-clockwise to get the prevailing winds. When we got to Melbourne, we were invited to a barbecue down at Rosebud in the Mornington Peninsula, and when we got there, there was the president of the Scottish Austin 7 Club was there as well. And he said to my late husband Bryant, would you please write a story about the trip around Australia when you get back? Bryant said yes, and he wrote this little, in this little book, it's an excerpt actually from the magazine, and Bryant wrote it, and it was called My Uncle Had One of Those. That was the saying we heard the most of. People would run up and say, my uncle had one of those. Now, uncle could have had any kind of a car, but it was one of those. I'm not going to read, I won't tell you about the town so much as the interesting things, the funny things that happened to us, and a couple of times where we nearly didn't make it. But I will read from this, just the first section of this, because Bryant wrote it and he knew more about the car than I did. So I will read this. We drove this, it was Easter 1991 when we left. We were away nearly 18 months. We did 35,000 kilometres in the car, and it's a 1929 Austin 7 acquired in 1960 from the original owners. So I'll read it as Bryant wrote it. Unice and I have been contemplating trips for some time, considering going around Australia, considering caravanning, but eventually decided to drive Grandma. Now Grandma's the car, not me. She got this name when we first acquired her in 1960. We lived in Adelaide, and we took it to the club, and someone looked at it and said, it looks like Grandma Duck's car. If you remember the Duck series, Donald Duck series, his grandmother had a car and it was the same shape. So it acquired this name of Grandma. And if you see her running around the town now, that she's still with us, you'll see Granny 7 written on it. The 7 is a horsepower, 7 horsepower. So away we go. We decided that we would take Grandma, already a veteran of tours around Tasmania and New Zealand and countless valleys interstate. What to take? A good question, considering the space or the lack thereof, because the car is only 1.5 metres wide and 3 metres long with the luggage rack down, so it's not very big. I've got a few photos here. I'll pass them around and you gives you some idea of how big the car isn't. So
Like a little Spitfire.
our clothing was packed in 2 canvas bags which shared the space behind the seat. There's no dicky seat in it, so the only way you get in to pack anything is the back of the front seat comes down and you stow it in behind. So there was 2 plastic bags, a his and a her plastic bag, which shared the space with a tent, which was you could stand up in it. It was specially bought for the occasion. A blow-up mattress, 2 blow-up mattresses, and a pump, and the folding stools. And the sleeping bags were in a waterproof trunk on the back of the luggage carrier. We couldn't, food was not carried because we didn't have any space available. We had to make sure that we stopped somewhere to get food. A basic Austin 7 toolkit and rudimentary spares such as a couple of valves, springs, radiator hose, fan bell, water and oil took up the space under the seat, plus a spare half shaft carried for 30 years and not left behind for fear of invoking Murphy's Law. If you don't take it, you'll need it. The rest was left to fate and our complete faith in the old grandma's reliability. So that was how it was. Now, we decided that seeing we'd booked into a rally in Innisfail, which is about an hour's run of modern car down from Cairns. We lived in Atherton actually. We decided to go to that, and then after we left, it was an Easter, 91, and we left on the Friday. There was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, everybody left to go their own way and go home. So we were the first to leave because we wanted to get to Charters Towers that night. So we left with people waving, the club waving, saying, "You'll never make it, you'll be back next week, see you at the next meeting." And of course the Austin is an English car, and this one chap with a big old American car called out, "You'll never make it in that pommy rubbish." Well, when we got back, suddenly the pommy rubbish had become English craftsmanship. We never heard about the pommy rubbish anymore. So we got to, I won't tell you about every night, but we got to Charters Towers the first night. It was about 5 o'clock. I've got to tell you this because we nearly blew the budget the first night out. We got to Charters Towers. It was about 5, and Bryant said, we booked into the cabin there, and he said, "I'll go up and get some takeaway. We'll come back, we'll have an early night, we'll get an early start tomorrow," because we'd been over this ground before. And he said, and I said, "Okay," so away we went. 5, 6 o'clock came, 7 o'clock came, 7:30. By this time I'm getting really worried because there was no communication. We didn't have any mobiles in those days. And eventually he came in and I said, "Gee, you were a long time, what happened?" He said, I said, "I got out the car, walking across the footpath," and he said, and this chap came up, he said, "Oh, an Austin 7, I've got one of those." He said, "It's the same year, it's a 29. And Brian said, "Oh, do you drive it in the rallies?" And he said, "No, it's in pieces." Brian said, "You're going to restore it?" He said, "No, I think I'll sell it." Well, I mean, you don't say that to a vintage car man for the simple reason that it's like saying to a child, "You want an ice cream?" You know? So anyway, he said, "Would you like to see it?" And Brian said, "Yes," because Brian, in the back of his mind, had the idea that he wanted to restore another one to look like a little delivery van. So went around, and when he said, "Oh, I didn't have time to see you very much, I'll go around in the morning." So in the morning went around, there went the early start, and we went around, and they were all there. The hood bows were there, all the instruments were there, everything. The engine had been done up and was in oily rags, and anyway, $2,000 changed hands, and we're the proud owners of a heap of bits. Well, that's what I thought they were. Brian thought they were wonderful. So we rang up our son. He came from Atherton. He came down and picked them up on the trailer a couple of weeks later. So when we got home, there, sitting in the middle of the garage, was this heap of bits. So that the first night out, we nearly blew the budget. But anyway, from there, went across to from Charters Towers. I have to make notes now. That's how the memory's getting. And then to Mount Isa. Well, we got to Mount Isa. We had booked to go through the mines, which was great. If ever you get the opportunity, go through the mines. It's like the main street down there. There's cars running up and down. There's traffic lights. There's all sorts of things down there. You have to look up to make sure that you're underground. So we went through the mines and spent a few days around there. So now and then off we're facing the Berkeley Highway, see, and we're off to Camberwell. We're heading towards Camberwell, and all these cars coming towards us, they're all covered in gunk, and some had the windscreen wipers going. And Bryant said, I reckon there's a swarm of grasshoppers up there. Well, there was, and they were thick. So if you're in a modern car, you just wind up the windows. But in this car, you've got side curtains. So you have to get them out, you know, and by the time you do all that, you've got all jumping around in the car. So we decided we'd go through them. When we got through them, so they were in our hair and they were down the front of our shirts. And Bryant said to me, because it was hot weather, there's one crawling up the leg of my shorts, would you locate it for me? And there I am with my hand. If somebody had gone past then, they'd wonder what on earth was going on in that funny little car. So anyway, we got through, and then we had to pick them all out of the radiator. They're all stuck in the radiator. And anyway, we're okay. Right, so back in the car. We're going along for about another hour, and there was another swarm. There must have been 2 legs of them. So there's another swarm, so the same situation. And those that get through the radiator and get on the hot head, they start cooking, and they don't smell very nice either, I can tell you that. So anyway, and then I think we must have stayed, we went along the Berkeley Highway, we stayed at the Berkeley Roadhouse. Next day we're heading towards Tennant's Creek on the corner of 3 ways, you know, up to Darwin, down to Alice Springs. And before we got there, there was, on the road, there's a roadkill strewn all over the road, probably a kangaroo. And there was 5 wedge-tailed eagles eating the roadkill, and didn't seem to worry them that we were coming, so Bryant blew the horn, and they took off into the wind. One of them turned, and the first recollection, he's about 6 feet, 8 feet in front of the car. He's got wings out like this. They're 6 foot wide. They're huge birds, 6 foot wide, and the talons are like this. And I thought, no, I can remember thinking, if he strikes the radiator, we're going to be here forever. There'd be water running everywhere. Anyway, he didn't. He missed the radiator. Between the mudguard and the radiator, there's the headlight. Hit the headlight, broke the bracket, and that was broken. He came up the bonnet with these talons, screech up the bonnet, right down to the metal, you can imagine, and bang, into the windscreen. Luckily, didn't break the windscreen, and then he sort of fell off the side. And Bryant slowed down. I said to Bryant, oh, go back and see, he might be hurt. Bryant looked at me and said, no way in the world, June, am I going back there to mix it with an angry wedge-tailed eagle. Anyway, we stopped, and because we had to fix the light, and he was getting mobile. He must have been only stunned. But then we had to wire up the headlight. That was all jumping around. We had it welded and fixed in Alice Springs. So we got to Tennant's Creek. I think we might have stayed there, and then down to Alice Springs. A couple of days down to Alice Springs. Well, when we got to Alice Springs, there's some friends of ours in Alice Springs, Mal and Sandy Trull. And Bryant said, I'll ring up Mal, see if I can go around and change the oil in his shed. Okay, so around we go. Yeah, that's okay. What kind of oil does it use, Bryant? And Bryant said, oh, Granny's an old cheapskate. She likes all that stuff you get from Woolies and Kmart. She's been running on it since I got her in 1960. And Mal said, oh, he said, there's this new U-Butte oil out. Yeah. And oh, yeah. He said, I've got it in my modern, and I'm going to put it in the special that he was building an Austin special. He said, I'm going to put it in the special. But Bryant thought about it. Anyway, okay, threw caution to the wind and went and got this new U-Butte oil. We put that in and ran around Alice Springs and saw all the touristy bits again. And then we're heading up towards Darwin, see? Well, by the time we got back to 3 ways, Bryant said, I don't know what's going wrong with the car, it's awfully sluggish. And I made the comment of going up the map, of course, which wasn't appreciated at that particular time. And it got slower. We called in, saw the Devil's Marbles and all those along the way, you know. And eventually we get to Mataranka. Well, we got to Mataranka, this is days later. By this time the car's really Bryant knew there was something wrong and he couldn't figure out what it was. So we went into Mataranka, and if ever you want a place to rest for a while, Mataranka, it's got the thermal springs there, and it's absolutely wonderful. If the fruit bats are not about. They close it now because the fruit bats are shocking. Anyway, we stayed in there. We stayed there for 3 or 4 days and had a bit of a rest, and then he rang. We had friends waiting at Catherine for us, Noel and Neil. So he rang Noel and said, I don't know what's going wrong with the car. Noel had about 5 or 6 vintage cars, and he also was a engineer, and his business was next to the house out on the Catherine Gorge Road. So he said, well, look, Bryant, come on quietly. If anything happens, I'll come down with, let me know, I'll come down with a trailer and I'll pick you up. That was rather reassuring. So off we went. Well, we did make it to Catherine, just. By that time it was really in trouble. We're down to 2nd gear, and you know, and next day Bryant took the engine out. I mean, it's only a little engine. Took the engine out, and what had happened, this new U-boot oil that we'd picked up wasn't for her at all. It didn't have the splashing capacity that the old oil that she was so used to, that we used to get from Woolies, and it wasn't, when the big ends come round, it hits the oil in the sump, splashes all over the place. Well, it wasn't doing that. So some of the things were running dry. Well, what had happened, the valve stems were dry, one was slightly bent and one had a crack in it, so we could not have gone, if we'd gone much further we would have absolutely messed up the engine completely. So Bryant, we all still belonged to the Adelaide Club, and so Bryant rang up David and told him what had happened. Could you send up some more valves for me? So they sent up some more valves. Bryant put it in, put the valves in, put the engine back in, went over to Woolies and got some of the old oil she loved so much, put it in, and we didn't have any more trouble with that afterwards. It was so that was another time we could have been there for a long, long time. So away we go. So we get to Darwin. Oh, we ran all around there and had a look at the touristy bits and things, and then up to Darwin. And when we were in Darwin, we had a mail pickup there. We used to bring our son at Atherton, and he would go and get our mail and post it over to us. So we posted this at Darwin. We had to pick up mail at Darwin. I'm outside the car, Bryant's in getting the mail. This lady came running up and she said, I'll buy it. How much do you want for it? My husband's always wanted one of these, I'll buy it. I had to convince her it wasn't for sale, see? And she said, I'll give you my card. Well, she gave me the card. I can't remember the name, but it had jewellers written on it. And I looked over and she's got diamonds all over her hand. There's diamonds here. I think I could have made a clean swap right there and we would have still been in front. So somebody wanted to sell it, buy it very badly in Darwin. So from Darwin, of course, now we're up here, up at Darwin. So to get across to the left there, west, you've got to come back to Catherine, or we did. You come back to Catherine, and we went into Litchfield Park. That is just below Darwin. Darwin, Litchfield Park, into Kakadu. It's 200 k's in and 200 k's out, but that's worth looking because of the waterfalls and all that. But it was pretty well the same type of climate and things as we were used to living in. So because we lived in Queensland, back to Catherine. Now, from there we turn west, and we along the Ord River scheme and been through here. Now the Ord River scheme is absolutely magic. There's things growing everywhere. And the Argyle mines, diamond mines are there too. Bryant said to me, we're looking at some diamonds one day, he said, like any Unice? I said, yeah, that big pink one looks good. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll go home, we'll sell the shares, we'll sell the house, and we'll sell the cars, and we'll come back and get it. Needless to say, I didn't get it. But it was a beautiful looking thing. Anyway, from the Ord River and the diamonds, and then we go on, and now we're getting to Wyndham and Hall's Creek. We're in through here. Kununurra and Hall's Creek. Here we are here. Well, from Hall's Creek we did a trip in the helicopter out over the Bungles. And that was absolutely magic. Bryant thought they were just a heap of rocks, but to me I thought they were wonderful. So from then over the Bungles and then to Fitzroy Crossing, Derby. I hurry here, the car was still going okay, better than we were probably at this stage. And we eventually come to Broome. Now we're at Broome and the ABC radio caught up with us there. You cannot go into a place and sneak in and be quiet because people want to know. I understand that, and lots of questions. Funny thing about questions, you get the older group and they come round and they want to know, oh, how many miles to the gallon and what size tyres, and they want to know all about the car. And you get the young ones that come up and they look all around it and they say, what's he worth, mate? There's a difference in it. Of course, they probably don't understand the cars. So we were at Broome and the radio caught up with. We stayed at Cable Beach. It's right next to the Cable Beach resort. And there just happened to be a gate between the caravan park, we were in a cabin there, between the caravan park and the Cable Beach resort. And they had happy hours there, and it was about, I think 6 to 8 was happy hour, and cocktails were half price. I mean, very inviting. So we used to go in there and get a little bit of happy and then come back and have a main meal, and they had a very good rec hut there. You could play table tennis and bowls or whatever. We stayed there for quite some time, and the weather was good. And it was one place where we actually pitched the tent. I quite like sleeping in a tent, so it's probably left over from the army days. So anyway, we pitched the tent there. Now, from Broome down to Port Hedland, here, Broome down to Port Hedland is a long, long way. And apart from that, there is absolutely nothing. Except halfway down, there's a little place called Sandfire, where you could get petrol. Our tank only holds about 4 gallons, so from Broome to Sandfire was about as far as we could go on a tank of petrol. So we carried a little bit. But halfway between there and Sandfire, the car started to miss intermittently. It was funny sort of a misfire. Bryant said, oh, what a place to break down. There's just nothing around. And so there was a rest area, and the rest area is only a little bit of cleared ground with a cement, with a concrete table and a stool. That's about all that's there. So we stopped, and what had happened, Bryant took the distributor out, the rotor button, little silver thing in the rotor button had come loose, and it was flinging around at the wrong time and firing when it thought about it, see. So what you going to do? He said, oh, just get that stone over there and I'll get a screwdriver and I'll bang it back in. I mean, try doing that on a modern car. So while we're in the throes of thinking about this, a huge road train pulled up. They go up and down there all the time. And this road train pulled up, and the chap was big prime mover, 3 big carriages on the back, and he climbed down out of this thing and he said, I saw you up in front, and I wonder what the hell it was. Anyway, he said, and he said, oh, can I help you, mate? You're in trouble. And Bryant said, no, he told him what had happened. So between them, they fixed it, and Bryant put the radio button back in, the distributor cap on, and he started it up. And you have to excuse us with language. And the chap he's standing there looking down at it, the driver, and he said, bloody, look at the size of that engine. He said, my bloody starter motor's bigger than that. So then we had a cup of coffee and talked about big trucks and small cars. But he had to go because they're on a time limit, those blokes. So we did get into Sandfire without any problems. Didn't need any petrol, any extra petrol. So we put that in the tank, and the tank's in the front. By the engine, and Bryant filled it up, went inside and came out. This is when petrol was about between 55 and 60 cents a litre, by the way. And he said, chappie in the other way, and he had a big four-wheel drive, a 20-foot caravan. There was mum, dad, 2 children, the dog and the cocky. I know the cocky was there because one of the kids got out of the caravan and Mum said, shut the door, the cocky will get out. So he said, when Bryant came in, he said, because we had this roaring tail wind, which was great. The four-wheel drive was driving up into a very strong northerly. And he said to Bryant, how much did you put in there? Bryant said, oh, no, about $10 worth, 5. He said, well, I put 150 in this morning. So Bryant said, well, stay here. He said, I can't, I've got to get Broome tonight. So God knows what it cost him to get to Broome. So we went to Port Hedland. We get to Port Hedland without any problems. And from Port Hedland, went and had a look at Roebourne, which is just here on the coast, Roebourne. And then from Roebourne, there's a little town on the coast called Cossack. So we thought we'd go down and have a look at Cossack. And while we were there, Bryant said, it's a nice little wharf there. Well, get some sandwiches, it was lunchtime, get some sandwiches and go down on the wharf and eat them. So, okay, so I'm sitting in the car waiting for him to get the sandwiches, and I can see the police car come up alongside of me, the candy car, with the stripes on it. And he wound the window down, I looked over, he said, was that you doing those wheelies and squealies back there? I mean, wheelies and squealies in Austin 7, you've got to be joking. And I thought, I'll go along with this. I said, oh, you've caught us, see? And he said, follow me back to the police station. I said, why? He said, never mind why, just follow me back. So I said, well, my husband's getting sandwiches, when he comes out, tell him to follow me. And the smile had gone off his face, and I thought, we haven't done anything wrong. I couldn't think of anything we've done. You know, it's registered, everything's okay. So anyway, Bryant came out. I said, the police car in front wants us to follow him back to the station. I said, why? I said, don't know. I said, I hope he hasn't seen my bald tyres, because we were due to pick up we were getting down, we were due to pick up 2 new tyres in Perth. Anyway, the policeman sort of went like this. We followed him back to the police station, and he said, wait here, right out in front of the police station. It's got police station written up. And he went inside, and I thought he had something in his hand, like a book, when he came out. And I said, no, don't tell me he's going to do a roadworthy on it or something. And he came, and it was a camera. He said, stand aside. And he went away from the car and he took the photo. He said, I write for the police magazine. And he said, no, I want to put this photo of the car in and tell them this is their new patrol car. Oh, I'll tell you what, I could have kissed him. He said, anyway, seeing you've got those sandwiches, he said, come in and we'll give you a cuppa. So we went in, out the front, there's a big tree in their yard, the police yard, and seats, and we sat there. Well, it should have been a half an hour, turned out to be 2 hours, because one of the policemen was a nephew of a chap that in Kadina where we lived, and he used to come over on holiday, so he'll know all about it. So anyway, we were eventually allowed to leave, and away we went. So then from there, we in Port Hedland, because they entered Dampier Exmouth, it's 180 k's in and 220 out, you know, and but still we have plenty of time. Then Onslow, so we're going to Carnarvon because we've got friends in Carnarvon are waiting for us. He's another Austin 7 man that we know, and we've got to about 150 mile north of Carnarvon, and the chap said, "Where are you heading?" I said, "Oh, south, going to Carnarvon." He said, "You won't get through the river, mate. The river's up and it's 2 feet over the bridge." And he said the only people getting through are the big the road trains, and some 4-wheel drives. But apart from that, modern cars and caravans are not getting through. Well, I said to Bryant, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Oh, we'll go down. It might go down, you know." Well, by the time we got there, the river had gone down a bit, and there's people all lined up waiting to get through with caravans and cars. And there's 2 chaps standing on the bridge. The water wasn't flowing very quickly, it was just oozing along by this time. And the water's about up to their knees. But I said, "I can get through there because the carburettor and the differential, the carburettor and the distributor are very high, mounted very high on the side of the engine. So they're not going to go underwater. You probably get that in the doors," which we did, but Brian had